Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Music of the Week. I have about 6 albums to go through for this one. I don't really have a lot to really self-promote until the end of the video anyway, so I say we get through the 6 albums as quick as I can manage. We begin with Fuming Mouth and what I believe is their third or so album, titled Last Day of Sun. These are a sort of death metal act with a nice crust punk edge to them, and while this isn't my favourite crustling punk album of the year, and that still goes to Black Button, which dropped away the fuck back in January, that's still in my top 30 potentially, I did quite like this one, and second highest grade of the episode gets an A-. I really enjoyed a lot of the elements of this one. I liked the sort of crusty punk edge to the metal riffs. I thought they were quite good. I liked the performances a lot, but I think the main thing that sells it for me really was the lyrical theme. It is mostly an album about mortality, and it was very much inspired by the lead singer and his recovery from leukemia. It's a really good place to draw off of. It's why I liked Yob's album Our Raw Heart so much, because I was inspired by their lead singer's battle with an illness, which I think was a misdiagnosis cancer at the time, but it was still very, very bad. But yeah, the one with Fuming Mouth, very similar case. Like, going through that is not fucking easy. And the fact that they used it as a really good writing block to write the songs, I really enjoyed. The album does have quite a good bit of fury. I do think it does squeeze in a bit of unnecessary melody, which usually I don't hate, but it just feels like it got stuck to one lane. But what we get is still really, really good. Production's really nice too. Don't know who did it, but they did a good job. I like the structuring as well. I do like it when it does stick to a lane specifically, and it does that more often than not. It's just a really nicely put together death metal album with a really strong central theme to it, which I quite liked, so I can recommend giving this one a spin. Next we have Hail the Sun and their new album Divine Inattention. This is also another band I was not too familiar with. In fact, looking ahead, there's only like 2 artists in this episode that I had listened to before, and they're fairly late in. But yeah, Hail the Sun are a post-hardcore act with strong alternative rock roots. They did give me sort of a LS June / Dance Gavin Dance vibe, and I quite liked it. I'm giving this one the highest grade, which was an A. I really enjoyed a lot of it. I like the instrumental dynamics a lot, especially the guitar work. My god, the guitar work on this thing is so good. I really enjoyed a lot of the drumming too. The bass work's good. I like, again, just how dynamic everything feels. It's a really good sound, very eclectic, very fun, very nicely layered, again, thanks to the production. The production's quite good. I like the vocals a lot too. The lead singer, whose name I can't remember, absolutely fucking knocks it out of the park. But yeah, the performances themselves are just great all around. The entire band does such a good job. I don't think they've ever changed a member either, which is extremely rare in the field, especially post-hardcore acts. Structurally wise, I can go structurally wise. I was going to go lyrics, but I haven't done those yet, but I'll say all this last. Structurally wise, really well paced too. Knows exactly how to keep a song going and to make it interesting, keep it interesting. Very interesting album, I will say, and one that did keep said interest for a long time for me. I just really like the pacing. I think it's got really good bones to it. And I like the lyrical themes of cynicism and how humans can be horrible people to each other. It makes for some pretty fun writing in places. And it's also not really a theme you get a lot of. There is some stuff about love, but it's mostly about the negative aspects of human behaviour. And I do like it when a band is willing to delve into that, especially considering that the tone doesn't really go against it too much, but doesn't necessarily fit it. It's just such a really well-struck balance, and I really, really enjoyed this one. I don't know if it will be in my top 30 near the end of the year, because we are getting very, very close to the end of the year, but I did quite like it. Next we have The Kills with their newest album God Games. Now this is again another act I wasn't super familiar with before this, not to be confused with The Killers, and aka the writers for the most overrated rock song ever, Mr. Brightside. I don't like it, come at me. The Kills are a very different vibe, and they're sort of a garage rocky, indie rocky act. I'm giving this one the lowest grade of the episode, which is a B-. Now, I did like a lot of the riffs. I felt like they were quite strongly followed on. I think the album and the duo involved in it have a lot of charisma and personality to them. I also don't mind the production that much. I think that might be the main saving grace of the album, but the 2 things I do sort of have issue with are the structuring not really having a lot of variety to it. I get that it's supposed to be quite bouncy and lively and very rock-fueled, but it just doesn't really carry a lot to it, especially with how good rock can be and has been in 2023 especially. And the lyrics are just weird. There's so many repetitive phrases, and I couldn't fucking pick up on anything. I could not find anything about lyrical themes. I couldn't find anything relating to what they could be. I read through the lyrics of most of the songs and couldn't fucking find a connecting thread, really, and I mean, this is a very high profile album too. It's the band's first in like what 6, 7 years or so, and I just got nothing from the writing. I do think everything else is mostly alright though, which is why it gets the B minus. But yeah, like the lyrics of this thing are just repetitive, weird phrases, and it just didn't really fit with the rest of the album for me. Next, we finally have an artist I've covered before. We have Little Darky with his new album, The Future Is Dark. So, yeah, I've known about Little Darky for about 3 years, I think, and I quite like him. I'm giving this one a B+. I think this is his, and I could be wrong about this, I think this is his first album not related to Spider Gang since they broke up. They split last year, but they've gone their separate ways as well. And it's nice to see one of them like doing work. Obviously, the rest of them are probably still doing shit too. But Little Darky is the only one that I think people really know as much about. I thought this had some really good stuff on it. It's got his typical like sort of hardcore leading hip hop and sort of like very rough horrorcore elements. There's even some nice metal bits, but I think the album benefits the most when it feels more like a lo-fi album, and there are elements of that thrown in there. There's really nice electronic elements, more like trancey and trap elements that are thrown in that are quite good too. And it's still got like his very eclectic sort of mood setting. Like Little Darky can go from like really fast raps to things about murder and death and love. But the main theme on the album, which I quite like, is the theme of technology, and specifically AI technology, and how it's becoming a much more of a thing with each passing moment. But it is a really, really nicely tied together theme. Obviously, Darky himself is a fantastic performer, really good writer, really good rapper, really good screamer too. This might be his like death metal screamiest album that I've heard from him. I like the instrumentation. I think the beats are very, very varied, very fun. I like the structuring, even though there are a couple of songs that maybe could have been removed, but I do not mind them, especially the joke song, Terminally Online Guy Signs a Record Deal, I think it's called. Really funny fucking song, easily one of the funniest ones that Little Darky's ever written. And I like the production too, I think it was handled by him. It just really makes each song pop, as I like the many eclectic elements thrown in. Really good stuff, really fun song placement too. It does like drag in a few areas, and I do think there is a little bit of a lack of urgency to it, but it's still a really good album by Little Darky, who is really good at what he does. Next, we have Set to Stun with their newest album, Valkyrie 1. Now, sort of similar to Hail the Sun in a way, this is very much a post-hardcore leaning act with more of a metalcore vibe to them, and I'm giving this one a B. I liked it, but I don't think I'm as crazy about it as everyone else is. I think it's because I listened to Hail the Sun before this one, and obviously, I've got like the month listed. Hail the Sun's album came out in August, Set to Stun's one came out in October, and I always do it alphabetical order, so I listen to Hail the Sun's first, like band name alphabetical order, so I listened to Hail the Sun's, then obviously the others before I got to Set to Stun. And I liked it, but I was very, very confused in places by it. I thought the instrumentation was really good, especially the guitar work. There's elements of it that are better than on Hail the Sun's album, I'll admit. I will admit, in terms of its lyrics, it's a bit of a strange one, because I could find the writing, and I think there's a concept to it, right? But I couldn't see if there was one, and I think this might be sort of a concept band, because like they've been around since 2009ish, and this is only their third album, and their first in like 8 years, so I think maybe their previous albums were also concept albums. I don't know. It might be another case of, I think, Crystal Coffin from last week. But those guys are a bit more consistent with their releases. It was a bit of a weird thing, and I couldn't really find, again, like with The Kills, I couldn't find a connecting theme necessarily. But I did like most of the writing, even if some elements felt a bit dated and a bit creepy in areas, but good enough for me. Again, the riff work is really strong. I like the performances as well, especially the brothers, Damien and Taylor Wong. Damien is the lead vocalist and also guitarist, I believe. Taylor is the bassist. There's also a drummer who's not one of the brothers, but he's still really good too. I like the production of it. It was handled by Eric Jensen and Kevin Gruft, who are normally associated with, who I know best for having worked with Escape the Fate. Obviously, Eric is one of their current members. Kevin is a former member. It was kind of cool that they swung by this project, though. And the structuring is also a little bit strange. It does go a bit too deep into the proggy elements for me, and some of the songs do have weird switches, especially the first song, which is like, I think 7 or 9 minutes long. It's got so many weird shifts that it doesn't really build up to a whole bunch, and it feels like three 3-minute songs that were just tacked onto the end of each other. it was just such a strange. One of the songs feels like that. I can't remember if it's the first track, but it can be a bit off-putting in terms of structuring. But I do appreciate the fucking goal and effort to actually try and go for it. And as much as I did complain about it, they do make it work in a weird way. I just wish that they, could set up a bit better to the punchline. Finally, we have the other bands I've covered before. The only actual band. I mean, Little Doc is the solo artist. Silence Is Mine with their new album, Play Dead. And give this one pretty straight up a B+. I really like Silence Is Mine. I've always liked their style of alternative metal blended with hardcore punk and bits of reggae and rock. They're a really good band. I like their performances here, especially the band's drummer. This might be some of his best work. The entire band is still really, really good. I do think... Oh, I almost knocked a bottle of pop over there. I do think that the whole... That's staying in. I do think that the whole band is still really good at what they do as a unit. I like the lyrics mostly being about, like, the sort of post-pandemic era, because their last album came out in 2020, and you can really feel a lot of frustrations vented. Again, the performances are great, nothing wrong with that. I do like the main lyrical theme of just feeling like they're back, and there's a really good few things about love, and there's typical stuff the band write about with some nice political elements too. I like the riff work, especially the guitar is amazing, as is the bass, as are the drums, but like the guitar is really where the band is always shown. And production-wise, it's really nice too, and it's the first time that the band is self-produced, so really enjoyed that, and I hope that they continue to do it. However, the one sort of falling point for me was the structuring, not necessarily from any bad standpoints. I mean, there's fairly standard stuff, but it's still really pretty good for what the band do. But the last song is an orchestral version of, I think it's called The Rumbling, which is one of the standalone singles. So why would you make an orchestral version which isn't nearly as good and make that the 13th song on the album? And the 12th song is a full version of a previous thing that they didn't release in full. It's very, very, very weird to me, that practice, but all in all, it's Silence Is Mine. They're a really good band, one of my favourite bands from Japan, so I still recommend checking it out if you wanna get a bit of J-rock in you. And that'll about do it. I'll do the whole ranking system that everyone cares about now. The Kills with God Game, Set to Stone with Valkyrie 1, Silence Is Mine with Play Dead, Little Darker with The Future Is Dark, Fuming Mouth with Last Day of Sun, and Hail the Sun with Divine and Attention. But as always, go and check all of these out yourself. Go formulate your own opinions, because that's what makes the shit that we do interesting. And favourite album cover is kind of tricky, but I do probably like Hail the Sun's one the most. I don't know, it just looks really, really cool to me. Just like, really nicely drawn thing of someone ripping themselves open for like, whatever the hell's inside. It's a really good sort of theme. I enjoy it. That'll about do it from me. Next thing might be a stream tomorrow night, probably. I don't know. I'm taking a week off from the EFED, so we'll see what happens. But the next thing you will see me, you will see me for, is possibly a Fight the Night and the last UFC card of the year, so I can probably start to get a bit of a jump ahead on my top 10 fights. Which reminds me, I still need to rewatch that one I never got to review. I should see to that. But I will see you all possibly Sunday, maybe tomorrow for a reaction. That's the next thing I can probably guarantee. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.